An easy way to become a good conversationalist. Some time ago, I attended a bridge party. I don't play bridge, and there was a woman there who didn't play bridge either. She had discovered that I had once been Lowell Thomas' manager before he went on the radio, and that I had traveled in Europe a great deal while helping him prepare the illustrated travel talks he was then delivering. So she said, "Oh, Mr. Carnegie, I do want you to tell me about all the wonderful places you have visited and the sights you have seen." As she sat down on the sofa, she remarked that she and her husband had recently returned from a trip to Africa. Africa, I explained, how interesting. I have always wanted to see Africa, but I have never got there except for a 24-hour stay once in Algiers. Tell me, did you visit the big game country? How unfortunate, I envy you. Do tell me about Africa. That keep her talking for 45 minutes. She never asked me again where I had been or what I had seen. She didn't want to hear the talk about my travels. All she wanted was an interesting listener so she could expand her ego and tell about where she had been. Was she unusual? No, many people are like that. For example, I met a distinguished botanist or at a dinner party given by New York book publisher. I had never talked with a botanist before and I found him interesting. I literally sat on the edge of my chair and listened while he spoke on exotic plants and experiments in developing new forms of plant life and indoor gardens, and even told me astonishing facts about the humble plant potato. I had a small indoor garden of my own, and he was good enough to tell me how to solve some of my problems. As I said, we were at a dinner party. There must have been a dozen other guests, but I violated all the canons of courtesy, ignored everyone else, and talked for hours to the botanist. Midnight came. I said good night to everyone and departed. The botanist then turned to our host and paid me several flattering compliments. I said, most stimulating. I was this and I was that, and he ended by saying I was a most interesting conversationalist. An interesting conversationalist. Why, I had said hardly anything at all. I couldn't have said anything if I had wanted to without changing the subject, for I didn't know any more about botany than I know about the anatomy of a penguin. But I had done this. I had listened intently. I had listened because I was genuinely interested, and he felt it. Naturally, that pleased him. That kind of listening is one of the highest compliments we can pay anyone. Few human beings wrote back Jack Wolford in Strangers in Love. Few human beings are proof against the implied flattery of rapt attention. I went even further than giving him rapt attention. I was hearty in my approbation and lavish in my praise. I told him that I have been immensely entertained and instructed, and I told him I wish I had his knowledge. I did, and I told him that I should love to wander the fields with him, and I told him I must see him again, and I did. And so I had him thinking of me as a good conversationalist when in reality I had been merely a good listener and encouraged him to. A sure way of making enemies and how to avoid it. How to win friends and influence people, Dale Carnegie. When Theodore Roosevelt was in White House, he confessed that if he could be right, says 75% of the time he would reach the highest measure of his expectation. If that was the highest rating that one of the most distinguished men of the 20th century could hope to obtain, what about you and me? If you can be sure of being right only 55% of the time, you can go down to Wall Street and make $1 million a day. If you can't be sure of being right even 55% of the time, why should you tell other people they are wrong? You can tell people they are wrong by a look or an intonation or a gesture just as eloquently as you can in words. And if you tell them they are wrong, do you make them want to agree with you? Never, for you have struck a direct blow at their intelligence, judgment, pride, and self respect. That will make them want to strike back, but it will never make them want to change their minds. You may then hurl at them all the logic of a Plato or an Immanuel Kant, but you will not alter their opinions, for you have to hurt their feelings. Never begin by announcing, I am going to prove so and so to you. That's bad. That's tantamount to saying, I am smarter than you are. I am going to tell you a thing or two and make you change your mind. That is a challenge. It rouses opposition and makes the listener want to battle with you before you even start. It is difficult under even the most benign conditions to change people's mind. So why make it harder? Why handicap yourself? If you are going to prove anything, don't let anybody know it. Do it so subtly, so adroitly that no one will feel that you are doing it. This was expressed succinctly by Alexander Pope. Men must be taught as if you taught them not, and things unknown proposed as things forgot. Over 300 years ago, Galileo said, you cannot reach a man anything, you can only help him to find it within himself. As Lord Chesterfield said to his son, be wiser than other people if you can, but do not tell them so. Socrates said repeatedly to his followers in Athens, one thing only I know, and that is that I know nothing. Well, I can't hope to be any smarter than Socrates, so I have quit telling people they are wrong. And I find it that it pays. If a person makes a statement that you think is wrong, yes, even that you know is wrong, isn't it better to begin by saying, well, now look, I thought otherwise, but I might be wrong. I frequently am, and if I am wrong, I want to be put right. Let's examine the facts. There's magic, positive magic in such phrases as I may be wrong, I frequently am. Let's examine the facts. Nobody in the heavens above, or on earth beneath, or in the waters under the earth will ever object to your saying, I may be wrong. Let's examine the facts. One of our class members who used this approach is dealing with customers was Harold Rank, a Dodge dealer in Billings, Montana. He reported that because of the pressures of the automobile business, he was often hard-boiled and callous when dealing with customers' complaints. This caused flared tempers, loss of business, and general unpleasantness. He told his class, recognizing that this was getting me nowhere fast, I tried a new tack. I would say something like this: our dealership has made so many mistakes that I am frequently ashamed. We may have a aid in your case. Tell me about it. This approach becomes quite disarming, but by the time the customer releases his feelings. He is usually much more reasonable when it comes to settling the matter. In fact, several customers have thanked me for being such an understanding attitude, and two of them have even bought in friends to buy new cars. In this a highly competitive market, we need more of this type of customer, and I believe that showing respect for all women's customers opinions and treating them diplomatically and courteously will help beat the competition. You will never get into trouble by admitting that you may be wrong. That will stop all argument and inspire your opponent to be just as fair and open and broad minded as you are. It will make him want to admit that he too may be wrong. If you know positively that a person is wrong and you bluntly tell him or her so, what happens? Let me illustrate. Mr. X, a young New York